without a doubt, I mean, my interest in becoming a physical therapist is what brought me to the university, and equipped me well to say, like, it's a crucial part of how I'm able to be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't have been able to serve in the capacity that I did without working as a PT for 5 years, I think it was, before starting to work here full time. But I think the connectedness came from just people who are willing to invest in me.
Freshmen coming in, especially trying to get their mailboxes, and they can't get them open, which can be difficult. But I've had a couple of them, girls that have just, I think because of the orientation, they've been with mom and dad, and now all of a sudden they're gone.
People who are willing to say, like, I'm going to spend my time on you, right? Like, you are worth it to me to invest effort and energy and care into. And that sticks with someone, right? Like when someone takes time out of their day to say, you matter.
I had one last year even that, she was ready to go home. She was frustrated, she couldn't get her mailbox open and just broke down crying. And it's like, it'll get better. So, she didn't ask for it. I saw her, so I just stepped around and talked to her a little bit, gave her a hug. I
think I was really difficult at times to work with, right? Like, not like in terrible ways, but just like, and I'm doing it now, right? Like, there are students now who in recent years who I think of like, man, I probably was just like this, and it is so frustrating. Like, to work with someone who's, 18 to 22 years old, and they think they know everything. But then you remember, man, I probably was that exact same person, and I didn't realize that it was frustrating because the people who cared about me didn't show frustration, but showed love and care that I didn't deserve, right? They showed me the grace and mercy that I didn't deserve.
It's just when you can really feel like you're a parent to them that helps, just keep it going.
I teach a class called Water, Wastewater, and Hazardous Waste, and it's a hard class. There's a lot of math, there's all these weird engineering things, and there's this thing called a nomograph where you can kind of trace, and the students are like, why are we gonna use this? We're never ever gonna use this. And I get an email a year later, and he comes to campus now and recruits our students, which is also amazing. He's like, you just saved my company $1 million.
I had one pair of shoes that I wore every day into class. They were like desert boots. They went well with my reversible suit. I went through all the permutations of the suit by Wednesday. I think the only thing reversible was the vest. But early September, the sole on the shoe kind of tore away. So I'd be going in front of the chalkboard, and I tripped now and then because the sole would get caught on the carpet. I did double-sided duct tape, but that made it worse. And, I didn't think anybody was noticing any of that.
And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, that nomograph thing that we had to learn? He's like, yeah, I used it, and they were using the wrong diameter. And he goes, I just saved my company. And I was like, that's amazing.
I came into class one day in November, and all the students were kind of smiling and laughing. And I said, what's going on? What? And they all in unison said, new shoes. I had gone to the JCPenney's that weekend and got new shoes. And it started me thinking about, maybe there's something more going on here.
So those moments where you feel like you're not reaching students and they come back and they tell you the impact you've had on their lives, and not only personally but academically, that's really cool.
So when I first started here, my office was right next to Mariana Hofer's, and probably like many, I wasn't quite sure how to take her at first. But very quickly, through all of those days of her standing in my doorway chatting, right, we got to become really good friends. And I was still finding my way in terms of a professor's identity and how do I build rapport with my students? What kind of tone should I be taking? What feels natural and what feels right? And I got to overhear so many of her students come in and talk with her in her office.
Allie's mom was in the corner of a room crying. It was orientation weekend. So I went up to her and I said, can I help you? And she said, I just can't imagine leaving my daughter here. We're 3.5-hour flight from here. We're so far away. And I handed her my card and I just gave her my cell number and said, you know, it will be fine. And if she needs anything, please introduce her to me. I'm around and I will help her. And Allie came to me. Julie called me several times, asked me to, you know, just check and see everything okay. And we built a wonderful relationship.
And I will never forget this large football player coming in and sitting down, and as soon as he steps in her door, she goes, "Get in here." And he sits down, and to hear the tone of his voice, "Yes, ma'am, I know, ma'am, you know, I'm sorry," as she just scolds him over and over again. And I'm thinking, ugh, I would never, ever do this.
I think one of the things that stands out to me as being the most meaningful, my dad died very suddenly and unexpectedly at the start of fall 2021 semester, and so it was the second week of class, and I was just frazzled at trying to get organized for the semester, and then this big life thing happened, and so I took some time off, and Robin and Meredith kind of filled in for me while I was gone to take some time to just, fill in the gaps.
And when she finally finishes talking, he says, "Thank you so much for believing in me and for bringing me back and not letting me fail this class." And it totally switched, and I realized that this is how these relationships get developed. And not that I adopt that same tone now, but bringing my humanness forward and letting that professor take the back seat so that I can speak kind of heart to heart with a student is something that I learned right away from Mariana.
Through Allie's 4 years here, she became sick a few times. One was down in Congress. She was working at Congress and got a call from her mom at 8 o'clock in the morning and ran down to Columbus, told her, I said, I will go see if she's okay. And she had contracted some kind of disease from being in the barn. And so I stayed at the hospital with her. We brought her home. Belinda Ernst, a couple other nurses that was in the Cosiano Health Center, came over the weekend and gave her treatments over the weekend so she didn't have to stay in a hospital. Her mom ended up flying back to Ohio and stayed at the house. That just continued to build our relationship. And today, you know, Allie will always be my forever college student, and her mom and dad, we have the love for them and they have the love for us.
When I got back, my office door was covered in Post-it notes from students who just, were expressing their condolences and letting me know if I needed anything, they were there. And then the seniors bought, at the time, they bought this huge planter and they painted their handprints and their names all around it and put a succulent in it for me. So I think it was just a reminder that as much as I give to my students, they also care about me. And so they recognize, like, hey, Megan's going through this thing, and so here are some things that we can do for Dr. Gagne in this meantime. And I think that when I think about all of the millions of little things that stand out, that big thing meant a lot to me.
Unfortunately, Allie passed away a year and a half after she graduated. And that is probably, it's one of my most memorable memories of her, but it's also one that is hard because Allie wasn't just a student here. Everybody knew and loved Allie. And, we celebrated her last year by naming a scholarship after her. And her family came back for that scholarship. So she's someone that I know is watching above us and always going to take care of us, and she's going to live in my heart forever.